for the 86th Annual Academy Awards, and I'm going to talk through some of the nominations I was happy to see, some of the nominations I was surprised by, and certain films that should have made the list. Now, I was a little, curious to see what the Academy would do this time, because when it came to the Critics Circle, the Golden Globes, the BAFTAs, all their nominations seemed to have a certain number of people overlapping and a certain trend in terms of who they were nominating. Then again, the Academy doesn't tend to follow that trend, because last year Ben Affleck, Quentin Tarantino, and Catherine Bigelow were not nominated for Best Director. So I was hoping for the best, and here's what we got. Best Visual Effects. Now, while I'm happy with Gravity, The Hobbit, Iron Man 3, and Star Trek Into Darkness, I am so shocked. I'm appalled by the fact that Pacific Rim did not get nominated for visual effects. I mean, okay, it's not an Oscar-y movie, but you can't snub a film to this degree. The first category alone is living proof for the Academy that they do not like to nominate films that they dislike in any category. Let me give you the example of The Dark Knight Rises. While that is one of my personal favorites, there were people out there that didn't like it, and a lot of them I'm sure were Academy members. But because of that, The Dark Knight Rises was not nominated for visual effects. The Dark Knight Rises was not nominated for original score. Two things that I feel, even if someone who hates the movie, they would still think that The Dark Knight Rises should have been nominated in those categories. I'm sure there are people out there that dislike the fact that Man of Steel is not here. I'm not such a big fan of Man of Steel myself, but visual effects perspective, that film certainly had great potential. Film editing, no surprises, except for maybe The Wolf of Wall Street, which I had expected because I didn't think Martin Scorsese would ultimately get his nomination. But now that I think about it, with a 3-hour runtime, it's very difficult to get a Best Film Editing nomination. Best Costume Design, Best Makeup and Hairstyling. I think that The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug, in my opinion, has been snubbed from this category. It was nominated last year for Makeup and Hairstyling and Production Design, which we'll get to in a moment. But I'm a little surprised it's not here, and I'm a little more surprised to see Jackass Presents Bad Grandpa on the list for, one or two sets of makeup. It's kind of like when Norbit got nominated as well. I'm a little surprised, but, it's not unjustified. It's just a little surprising. Best Cinematography, I was a little intrigued to see, Prisoners. I really think Prisoners earned its nomination, deserved it by all means, but where is Sean Bobbitt for 12 Years a Slave? That is what shocked me. Because, the Cinematographers Guild had 7 nominations because there was a 3-way tie for the 5th position. So, I'm just a little shocked that Sean Bobbitt did not make it, because I thought that 12 Years a Slave was going to. Best Production Design, now that we look at the nominees, look, The Hobbit, again, I think it should have got nominated. But Gravity, Gravity is a great, great movie. It's a masterpiece of a film. And while I understand the production design just does not refer to backdrops or sets, it's very intricate, I just don't think that films like Gravity or even Life of Pi, which was nominated for production design last year as well, have ultimately earned the right to be nominated for production design, because especially Gravity really did not have that much in terms of production design. While the film is great, and I'm happy that it got all the nominations it did, production design is the one that kind of confused me the most. Sound mixing and editing, I was a bit surprised to see The Hobbit. I was happy to see it as well. I was a bit surprised to see Captain Phillips. I was happy to see it as well. Gravity and The Lone Survivor were no surprise. Sound mixing was good because it was one of the only few nominations that Inside Llewyn Davis got. And I'm shocked that Rush did not get nominated for sound mixing or sound editing. I thought that it had great potential in those categories. It's a little unfortunate, of course. Best Original Song, I can't say that anything's been snubbed, because I think as long as you have Let It Go and Ordinary Love on the list, there's no arguing in that sense. But when it comes to Best Original Score, there are some shockers, some big-time shockers. The Book Thief, of course, it was expected, as was Gravity. And the next 3, though, her, I always thought of, sure, Philomena, I never saw coming for score. Saving Mr. Banks is an interesting pick, and then again, Saving Mr. Banks has got snubbed for things like costume and production, but where is Hans Zimmer for 12 Years a Slave? That is a question. it shocks me, if 12 Years a Slave is such an Academy-centric film that they want to nominate in so many categories, because I think they want to nominate it in as many places and give it as many awards because they want to give it Best Picture, and I love 12 Years a Slave myself. I'm just a little shocked that Hans Zimmer did not get the nomination, even though I thought he had a shot. Then again, you have Stephen Price, but Hans Zimmer had a shot of winning this year, so him not getting nominated is a tidbit disappointing. Animated short, I guess my only complaint is The Blue Umbrella. I can't comment much about live action short or documentary short. And with regards to documentary feature, The Act of Killing is the only one I really heard of, so I'm not surprised to see it there. Foreign language film now, I think it's between The Great Beauty and The Hunt, but the big snub a lot of people know is Blue is the Warmest Color. It received all this buzz, all this time, and yet, despite that, Blue is the Warmest Color, it was shocking that it was not nominated. As a foreign language film, as a film in general, I mean, if they're nominating things like Amour, I mean, Blue is the Warmest Color had a place on this list, and I'm surprised that it didn't manage to capture it. Best Animated Feature, my complaint is Monsters University, because that was one of my favorite films this year. I loved it. I thought it was emotionally powerful at times, to be honest. It's really weird to say, or some people might think so, but I thought Monsters University was great, and I'm surprised that's not on the list. Moving on, Adapted Screenplay, The Wolf of Wall Street, 12 Years a Slave, Captain Phillips are the extremely expected ones. Before Midnight, I'm actually happy to see. I didn't think Before Midnight would get nominated for anything at all, so it's good. And Philomena, again, is getting a lot of love at this current Academy Awards, so that is fine. Best Original Screenplay, American Hustle, which had a great screenplay, Blue Jasmine, Dallas Buyers Club, Her, and Nebraska, all deserving. I think what the Academy tends to do is there's always a set. It's either the acting or the screenplay nominations that are hard to debate. I mean, they're debatable, but they're certainly more difficult to debate than most other categories. Best Supporting Actress, I think, is a fine lineup. Now, Best Supporting Actor is where I have to rant for a moment. Where is Tom Hanks for Saving Mr. Banks? That performance was great. Where, more importantly, is James Franco for Spring Breakers? You don't want to give him the award, you don't give him the award, but this is what I'm talking about. This is exactly what the Academy does, because Spring Breakers was not your typical Academy-centric film. I get it. But snubbing Spring Breakers for sound editing was bad enough, and now supporting actor. James Franco pulled off what is by far one of the greatest performances I have ever seen, and I'm not the only one that thinks that, and he's won at some other awards, by the way, and has been nominated in quite a few places. But, of course, Spring Breakers is not a film that the Oscars would want to kind of promote as they might feel they would be doing. So it's extremely disappointing not to see James Franco even nominated, and it's extremely surprising in a positive way to see Jonah Hill nominated for his second Academy Award. That's interesting, although Daniel Bruhl did suffer a snub because of that. Best Actress, and of course when I look at all the acting nominations, there's no surprise that David O. Russell's 4 actors have been nominated in all 4 categories, as it was with Silver Linings Playbook. Best Actress, I think Brie Larson for Short Term 12 was the miss. Julie Delpy for Before Midnight was a little bit more of a long shot than Brie Larson at least, but I guess, Meryl Streep, Sandra Bullock, Cate Blanchett, the whole bunch of them, it's expected. They've all been nominated before, and some of them have even won before, although I think I have a positive feeling this time that it could go to Amy Adams for all we know. Best Actor was a pretty big shocker as well. While Christian Bale pulled off some of the best acting, one of the best performances I've seen in a while, and while a lot of them proved that they could and deserved to be on this list, the one shocker, again, I'm surprised, where is Tom Hanks? Best Actor snub, Best Supporting Actor snub. I thought this was the year where Tom Hanks would get nominated twice, and he's got nothing. Captain Phillips, that performance, and I'm not spoiling it, but for those of you that have seen it, there is that scene. There is that scene in the latter half of the movie. Yeah, you know that alone earns him a nomination. I thought it was going to be between him and Chiwetel Ejiofor, but my God, where is Tom Hanks? This is something that has really pissed me off to no end. Best Director, let's take a look. Alfonso Cuarón was absolutely expected, as was Steve McQueen, as was David O. Russell. I thought these three were the locks. Like, there was no moving them. It was the other two I was not sure about. It's interesting to see Alexander Payne, of course, and I'm not that surprised, but Martin Scorsese, while a lot of the fans might not agree with that, and he did get the Directors Guild nomination, I never saw it coming, although it's certainly great to see him nominated. I'm just a little disappointed that someone like Paul Greengrass or Spike Jonze did not make the list. Ultimately, Best Picture, you have 12 Years a Slave, you have American Hustle, you have Captain Phillips, and you have Gravity. 4 films that I have loved, of course, and 4 films that were absolutely expected. Dallas Buyers Club is a little more of a dark horse. I don't think it's going to win, obviously, but it's really got the fans happy in that sense. Her, Nebraska, and Philomena were just like relatively smaller films that less people knew about, but I'm again extremely happy to see them nominated. And finally, The Wolf of Wall Street, which is great to see. If I compared this Oscar list to my favorite films of the year list, and I take a general look, there are films that have been looked over. For example, for original screenplay, The World's End, or even Don John. You know, that's the thing. The film didn't appeal to the Academy on all fronts, but it did on some, but not on all. Therefore, they could not nominate it on any front, which is what I believe is the fundamental flaw that the Academy possesses. And the thing is, now if we scroll down and see the films with multiple nominations, all right, you have The Wolf of Wall Street and Her, Best Picture nominations with 5, Philomena with 4, Captain Phillips, Dallas Buyers Club, and Nebraska with 6, 12 Years a Slave with 9, American Hustle, and Gravity with 10. Now, here's the thing. Of course, the 9 Best Picture nominations have the most number of nominations, and I'm sure this is not the first time that's happened, and the problem is this is not, it doesn't have to be this way. You know, I think even if, let me give an example, even if, okay, Philomena, for example, even if that was the greatest movie of the year, okay, even if it deserved to be in the top 9, you don't have to throw nominations its way, removing people more deserving to give it said nominations. And I think that that's what the problem is, and that's where the problem lies, and that's what's going to keep happening in the due course. That there are people, for example, James Franco, who pull off great performances, who put in a great amount of effort, who do not get recognized because the Academy specifically dislikes their film. That is something I have an issue with. But nonetheless, I can still say, I can pat the Academy on the back. There have been no major surprises apart from Hans Zimmer for original score and Tom Hanks for supporting actor or actor. And of course, Emma Thompson for Saving Mr. Banks. I did not expect her to get nominated anyway, so I guess that's all I have to say about the Academy. Nonetheless, I respect the Academy for the fact that, you know, they do a lot for film, and this show is a show watched by billions of people around the world. They honor some films. They've done it well in the past, and I think they can do it well in the future. I'm a little disappointed with some of the nominations. I'm still optimistic to see, and I will be reviewing the remaining Best Picture nominees over the course of the next few months leading up to the Academy Awards.